Chapter 20. The chapter about the path. The confounding of Mara. 500 monks were discussing the many paths they had trod while on walking tour, when the Buddha asked them their topic of discussion. On finding out, he advised them with these verses not to worry about those paths, but to follow the best of paths. 273. The Eightfold is the best of paths. Four Principles, the best of truths. Passionlessness, the best of states. The Visionary, the best of men. 274. This the path, there is no other, for insight and for purity. You should enter upon this path for the confounding of Mara. 275. Having entered upon this path, you make an end to suffering. The path was declared by me, the removal of darts by knowledge. 276. Your duty is to have ardor, declare the realized ones. On this path, meditators will be released from the bonds of Mara. The first path to purity. 500 monks strove hard, but were unable to attain arhatship, so they approached the Buddha for further teaching. Seeing into their past lives and knowing they had previously meditated on impermanence, the Buddha gave them this teaching, after hearing which they became arhats. 277. All conditions are impermanent. When one sees this with deep wisdom, then one grows tired of suffering. This is the path to purity. The second path to purity. 500 monks strove hard, but were unable to attain arhatship, so they approached the Buddha for further teaching. Seeing into their past lives and knowing they had previously meditated on suffering, the Buddha gave them this teaching, after hearing which they became arhats. 278. All conditions are suffering. When one sees this with deep wisdom, then one grows tired of suffering. This is the path to purity. The third path to purity. 500 monks strove hard, but were unable to attain arhatship, so they approached the Buddha for further teaching. Seeing into their past lives and knowing they had previously meditated on lack of self, the Buddha gave them this teaching, after which they became arhats. 279. All components are without self. When one sees this with deep wisdom, then one grows tired of suffering. This is the path to purity. The lazy do not find wisdom. 500 monks were given a meditation subject and went to the forest to practice, but one of them dropped out straight away. Later, the diligent monks became arhats and were invited to a meal. The lazy monk fell during the night and broke his thigh, and the others missed their meal. The Buddha explained they were delayed in a previous life by the same person and then spoke this verse. 280. The one who has not timely energy, youthful, strong, but given to laziness, lacking right intention, and indolent. The lazy one does not find wisdom's path. Undertaking the seer's path. Venerable Moggallana saw a ghost with a pig's head and reported it to the Buddha, who explained that in a previous life he was someone who broke up a sincere friendship, and after arising in Aveji, the hell of relentless suffering, was later reborn as a ghost with a pig's head because of his misdeed. And then the Buddha spoke this verse. 281. Verbally guarded, well restrained in mind, not doing demerit with the body, one should purify 3 paths of action and undertake the path shown by seers. From effort arises wisdom. Venerable Potila had been a reciter of the Tipitaka under all 7 Buddhas, but had never truly put the teaching into practice. So the Buddha started calling him Empty Potila. Taking the hint, he went far away to practice meditation, and later the Buddha appeared to him and spoke this verse to encourage him. 282. From effort arises wisdom. Without effort, wisdom is lost. Having understood these 2 paths of development and decline, one should then establish oneself so that one's wisdom increases. Cut down the forest of desire. Some laymen heard the Buddha teaching and ordained in old age, but even after ordaining, they still visited their families for meals. When a former wife of one of them died, they fell into deep lamentation. The Buddha explained they did that also in their previous lives as crows, and gave the monks this teaching. 283. Cut down the forest and not just a tree. From the forest arises a danger. Having cut down the forest and thicket, you should be without forests. Monastics. 284. For as long as an atom of desire of a man for a woman isn't cut down, for just so long in his mind in bondage, like a calf is in bondage to mother's milk. Cut off affection for the self. Venerable Sariputta's young disciple made no progress with his meditation subject, so he took him to the Buddha, who, understanding his inclinations, gave him a different subject: to look upon a lotus flower, which soon disintegrated, giving the young monk insight into impermanence. The Buddha then appeared and gave this instruction. 285. Cut off any affection for one's self, like an autumn lotus plucked with the hand. Develop fully the path to peace and nibbana as taught by the Happy One. A fool knows not the danger. The merchant, Mahadana, arrived at Savatthi to sell his goods and thought he will stay there all year round. The Buddha, however, saw that the merchant would die in 7 days and sent Venerable Ānanda to warn him. The merchant then gave meals to the Buddha and the Sangha, and on hearing the teaching in this verse, attained stream entry before dying. 286. Here I will dwell during the rains, here during winter and summer. In just such a way a fool thinks, not understanding the danger. Attachment to cattle and children. Kisa Kotami's child died, but she did not believe it and went round trying to find a cure. Someone sent her to the Buddha, who asked her to bring mustard seeds from a house that has never seen death. She was unable to, of course, and realized death is pervasive. The Buddha then taught her with this verse, and she became a stream enterer. 287. That person whose mind is attached, besuited by cattle and children, is snatched away by death, just as a sleeping village by a flood. Clear the path to Nibbana. After losing all her relatives in various disasters, Patachara also lost her mind. Eventually, she wandered into the presence of the Buddha, who gave the teaching in this verse, at which point she became a stream enterer. 288. Children are not a true refuge, nor fathers, and not kin. For one overcome by the end-maker, there is no refuge in relatives. 289. Understanding the truth of this, the wise one, endowed with virtue, should quickly purify the path that is leading to Nibbana.